Hey guys, today I'm going to cover a process in Attio. Attio is one of the fastest growing AI native CRMs in the world. And the specific use case I'm going to cover is how do you monitor decision makers of companies with whom you are in the process of doing deals. Now, one of the questions that top level management, either at the VP level, director level, or founders actually ask is I want to have a single view where the decision makers of all the leads or deals that are in the progress stage are visible to me in a single view. And I want to know when was the last interaction date, when was, when is the next meeting, what was spoken about in the last meeting, were there any concerns, and can I get more information about what they're doing on LinkedIn, on Twitter, or any company news? Now, you do all of this on Attio. Now, before this, someone would actually manually pull all the information on a Google Sheet. Now, when you pull the information on a Google Sheet, you'll have to manually create it, and it takes up to 2 days to do that. And sometimes the monitoring is not accurate enough, and there's no relevance to the current interactions. And Attio can actually solve all of these problems. The workflow that I'm going to show you right now is we're going to connect people, companies, and deals into a single workflow. And when we add a record into Attio, we'll basically assign a role to say, this person is a decision maker, this is a catalyst, and this is a user. And then we'll create a list of decision makers, and then we'll see how inside of Attio we could use workflows to automate the creation of these decision makers, right? Now let's dive down into how the people list looks like, right? So here's a list of people that I have in my CRM right now. And these are the set of companies that these people work at. This is the LinkedIn profile. Now I've created a role type over here, and I'm assigning whether this person is a decision maker or a catalyst who could help, you know, who could promote, who could be a champion for your product. And then there's the third set of person who's a user, and then there are certain set of people who are neutral. Now, how did I create this? Is you go to add column and you create a new attribute, and I have selected multi-select. So I'm going to show you over here. Um, so you select multi-select in the type, and you give it a name like role type, and you'll get options to choose. So like I said, you have an option to select the specific role types when you select multi-select, right? And you'll have to save changes. Now, every time a person gets added, when you add new person through this option over here, basically what you're doing is when you click over here, you get an option to select whether he's a decision maker or a catalyst or a user, anti-catalyst. Some people may not want to, buy your product, and because they're always showing a lot of concerns, and um, they are probably speaking about a lot of other competitors and all of that. Then there's an option to select as neutral. So as you can see, there are a few set of people who are acting as both users and anti-catalyst, or decision makers, anti-catalyst, or only single sort of a role type. Now, as soon as you do this sort of bifurcation, you are pretty much clear who are the decision makers in the list of people with whom I might potentially do a deal, right? Now, moving to the second part of it, once we have assigned role types to people, we'll have to create a list of decision makers, right? Now, I've already created a list over here. Now, this is a list of all the decision makers that I've interacted in companies in the past 1 month or more than that. Now, how did I create that list? So you can't do that in the records objects like in companies. People, you'll have to create separate lists for that. Now, I created a list and I started from scratch. I didn't use any of the templates over here. I basically started from scratch. And then oh, when you start from scratch, you've got to use the people object over here because we are assigning role types to people in the people object. And when you do that, you'll have options to get information from the people object over here. This is a pretty straightforward mapping. You can get the name, you can get the last interaction date, the company, the domains, and you could also get the call recording. I'm going to cover this in a bit. And then when you create a list, you can basically see you have a separate decision makers list. And it is not as, sometimes the people list can get very cluttered and you may not know the sort of decision makers that I want to look at. You could also filter out decision makers from over here, but having this list separately so that you can then enrich the people over here as and when you want to add more information. Now, how do I get people into lists is the question. Well, you don't have to manually add it always. So, like I said, you don't have to manually add people to lists. This process can be automated. So, whenever you're adding people to your people object and you automate this process, uh, decision makers will get populated over here. So, this is a workflow that I created. Um, Basically, when a record gets created in the people object, um, and then you search for a record in the people object, and here's the condition that I'm using. The role type should contain decision maker. So this workflow is going to always search for decision makers whenever they get added in the people object. You add a loop function, and there is a in the workflow you can add a record to a list. I've already created a decision makers list. I've selected that over here, and then I've added the current person's record. And then when you run this, basically all of the decision makers get added automatically. So this is an automated workflow. And once this table is created, you can do a lot of things now. There's an AI attribute that I've added, and what this AI attribute is doing is it's a research agent, and it's pulling, like company information about wavetalent.co and whether some other company has won some award or they're featured somewhere. This also gives me the last interaction date on when I had last interacted or someone from my company had last interacted with this person. There are a bunch of other information that you could do. You could have a view of the LinkedIn profile of the person. And I'm going to show you one more thing. Basically, what uh, people at the top, founders especially, ask is, I want to know what are the top three things this person had spoken about in the last interaction. So you could add your call recording. This is a sample call recording, by the way. And this is how a call recording usually looks like. This is a demo that I did with another company. You could get key insights from over here, next steps, right? So this is the important part. Now, in the absence of this, people would actually, create notes from manually written notebooks, manually written papers, etc. But here, basically, if I want to know what was the last interaction that happened with Bridget, I could go to the call recording. I could figure out what Bridget had spoken about, right? So this is a way in which you could have decision makers in one place. You have a lot of control over the process right now instead of having messy data spread out here and there. In the next part of this video, I'm going to show how you could have a lot of other information populated over here through signals from LinkedIn, through signals from Clay, right? If you've liked this post, if you've liked this video, please reach out to me in case you need any help in setting this up. Thanks, guys.